International Human Resource Management, Performance Appraisal in a Global Context. Hello student, welcome to the lecture on Performance Appraisal in a Global Context, and after this lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives. Understand advantages of competency-based HR system, understand the performance management and its link with other HR processes, explain the application of MIS, discuss about performance appraisal biases, describe the structure of competency models. Introduction. Let's start with a brief introduction to performance appraisal in the global context. Performance appraisals provide the basic for making selection and promotion decision, determining salary increases, and they are a vehicle for feedback between supervisors and employees. The performance appraisal process has become the heart of the human resource management system in the organization. Performance appraisal defines and measures the performance of the employees and the organization as a whole. It is a tool for assessing the performance of the organization. The important issues and points concerning performance appraisal is the present world are: the focus of the performance appraisal is turning towards career development, relying on the dialogues and discussion with the superiors. Performance measuring, rating and review system have become more detailed, structured and person-specific than before. Performance-related pay is being incorporated in the strategies used by the organization. Trend towards a 360-degree feedback system. The problems in the implementation of the performance appraisal processes are being anticipated and efforts are being made to overcome them. In India, the performance appraisal processes are faced with a lot of obstacles, the most prominent being the lack of quantifiable indicators of the performance. Performance management and its link with other HR processes. Evaluation of performance management. The evaluation of performance management includes activities to ensure that goals are consistently being met in an effective and efficient manner. Volatility of the international environment. Environmental volatility is a central construct in strategy studies. This argues that three factors confound the literature on volatility: asymmetry in conceptualization, asymmetry in operation, and lack of attention to level of analysis. Performance appraisal in global context. Managing performance in a global context depends on adequate commitments to trust, communication, open mind and understanding of cultural differences above and beyond what would otherwise be required in one location or country. Here are some additional measures that can facilitate performance management in a global context. Intercultural training. An understanding of the culture and customs in the country where their staff works closes the communication gap. Overseas staff involvement in home office activities. Taking into consideration that employees are left on their own or are constantly on the road in far away countries and that their managers are physically removed from their operations can encourage success. Consciousness lines of communication. By the same token, there must be a timetable for home office managers to speak with the overseas staff. This capitalizes on all the benefits of involving the staff in home office activities. Plus, it is quality time for support, checking on milestones, detection of potential opportunities and challenges, and it helps keep goals in line with the mission. Performance analysis tools. Ranking method. The ranking system requires a rater to rank his subordinates on overall performance. This consists in simply putting a man in a rank order. The relative position of each employee is tested in terms of his numerical rank. Advantages of ranking method. Employees are ranked according to their performance levels. It is easier to rank the best and the worst employee. Limitation of ranking method. The whole man is compared with another whole man in this method. In practice, it is very difficult to compare individuals possessing various individual traits. This method speaks only of the position where an employee stands in his group. It does not test anything about how much better or how much worse an employee is when compared to another employee. When a large number of employees are working, ranking of individuals becomes a difficult issue. There is no systematic procedure for ranking individual in the organization. The ranking system does not eliminate the possibility of snap judgment. Forced distribution method. This is a ranking technique where raters are required to allocate a certain percentage of raters to certain categories, example superior, above average, average, or percentiles like top 10%, bottom 20%. Advantages of forced distribution. This method tends to eliminate raters' bias. By forcing the distribution according to predetermined percentages, the problem of making use of different raters with different scale is avoided. Limitation of forced distribution. The limitation of using this method in salary administration, however, is that it may lead low morale, low productivity, and high absenteeism. Employees who feel that they are productive but find themselves in lower grade than expected feel frustrated and exhibit over a period of time reluctance to work. Critical incident technique. Under this method, the manager prepares lists of statements of very effective and ineffective behavior of an employee. These critical incidents or events represent the outstanding or poor behavior of employees or the job. Advantages of critical incident technique. This method provides an objective basis for conducting a thorough discussion of an employee performance. This method avoids bias. Most recent incidents are too much emphasized. Limitation of critical incident techniques. Negative incidents may be more noticeable than positive incidents. The supervisor have a tendency to unfold a series of complaints about the incidents during an annual performance review sections. It results in very close supervision which may not be linked by an employee. The recording of incidents may be a core for the manager concerned who may be too busy or may forget to do it. Checklist and weighted checklist. In this system, a large number of statements that describe a specific job are given. Each statement has a weight or scale value attached to it. Advantages of checklist and weighted checklist. Most frequently used method in evaluation of the employee's performance. Limitation of checklist and weighted checklist. This method is very expensive and time consuming. Rater may be biased in distinguishing the positive and negative question. It becomes difficult for the manager to assemble, analyze and weigh a number of statements about the employee characteristic, contribution and behaviors. Performance appraisal biases. You know that biases and judgment errors of various kinds may spoil the performance appraisal process. Biases here refers to inaccurate distortion of a measurement. These are first impression, primacy, effect. Raters form an overall impression about the rate on the basis of some particular characteristic of the rate identified by them. The identified qualities and features may not provide adequate base for appraisal. Halo effect. The individual's performance is completely appraised on the basis of a perceived positive quality, feature or trait. If a worker has few absences, his supervisor might give him a higher rating in all other areas of work. Horn effect. The individual's performance is completely appraised on the basis of a negative quality or feature perceived. This results in an overall lower rating than may be warranted. Excessive stiffness or lenience. Depending upon the rater's own standards, values and physical and mental makeup at the time of appraisal, rates may be rated very strictly or leniently. Central tendency. Appraisers rate all employees as average performance, that is, it is an attitude to rate people as neither high nor low and follow the middle part. Personal biases. Personal biases can stem from various sources as a result of information obtained from colleagues, consideration of faith and thinking, social and family background, and so on. Spillover effect. The present performance is evaluated much on the basis of past performance. The person who was a good performer in distant past is assured to be okay at present also. Recency effect. Rating is influenced by the most recent behavior, ignoring the commonly demonstrated behaviors during the entire appraisal period. Why do we conduct performance appraisals? Let's discuss three major reasons why organizations complete performance evaluation: communicating, decision making, and motivating. Communicating. The first major reason for performance appraisal is to provide an opportunity for formal communication between management, and the employees concerning how the organization believes each employee is performing. Thus, two-way communication is a critical component of correcting problems through the performance appraisal process. Decision-making evaluating. The second major purpose of performance appraisal is to allow management to make decisions about employees within the organization. Decision making based on good communication is a very large part of why we take the time to do annual performance appraisal. Motivating, developing. The third major purpose for performance appraisal is to provide motivation to our employees to improve the way they work individually for developmental purpose, which in turn will improve organizational productivity overall. Evaluating and motivating development. An effective performance appraisal process has two parts, evaluating and motivating, and it does both parts well. Evaluating is about assessing past performance and motivating is about developing employees to improve their future performance. Strategic IHRM characteristic. A critical aspect in the success of the MNC is the translation of its business objectives into strategic IHRM objectives and practices. IHRM lacks currency. Here are the four core issues that embrace competencies: timing, cost versus development, integration, and differentiation. Timing. Timing is one of the most important of the core elements and underlies to some extent the other fundamental issues. Timing involves whether the MNC has a short-term or long-term orientation in its business strategy and IHRM objectives. Development. Similar to the timing orientation, the emphasis on cost versus development indicates whether the MNC's priority is to incur initial lower operating costs in selection and training or to focus on the longer-term development of the firm's overseas operations and the career paths of its expatriates. Integration. Integration involves the degree to which the organization seeks to achieve a corporate global orientation with strong linkages between the corporate and overseas offices in two ways. One is using tight controls exercised by the corporate office. A second is control created through informal organizational culture via international staffing practices. Differentiation. The firm's major IHRM objectives should also dictate differentiation or the extent to which the company will overtly seek to understand the host country's culture. Competency models to improve HRM. The competency approach to human resources management is not new. McLennan described competency as a characteristic underlying superior performance. Competencies are defined as a set of skills, knowledge, abilities, and attributes characteristic that enable people to successfully perform. Different types of competencies. Carroll and McCracken argue that competencies are generally organized into three main categories, which was first proposed by Prahaland and Hamill. The second category is the leadership managerial competencies. This category involves competencies that are related to leading and organization and people to achieve an organization objectives that relate to managing, supervising, and developing people. Some examples include visionary leadership, strategic thinking, and developing people. The third category is functional job-specific competencies, those that are required to be performed in a particular job role or profession. The application of competency models to HRM functions. Competencies are important in the following employee management application selection. Competency-based selection is the oldest application among all the human resources system and can be traced back to McClelland's early work with competencies for hiring purposes. These are used to accomplish the purpose of establishing behaviors needed in a particular job and the extent to which these are possessed by different candidates. Training and development. Competency gap analysts can identify the needed competencies. These competencies can be linked with the equivalent learning objects. Creation of a competency system team, CST. As a first step, many enterprises and organizations create a CST, which consists of human resources staff, top executive and employees who possess a deep know-how of the jobs included in the model. This team has a responsibility for overseeing the whole initiative. Performance management. Working performance is evaluated against job competency, requirement as well as objective. Today, performance is not only seen as what objectives an employee achieves, but also viewed as how competency demonstrated job is carried out. Compensation management. Competency-based pay provides a link between competency ratings and compensation. As in the performance management process, a mixed model approach to compensation is desirable. Career planning. According to McLagan, the competency approach is an effective tool to be used as a criterion for career development. Competency-based career planning system link competencies with the development activities which help employees learn what they need for further development. Employee performance goals. The basic performance goals include motivation, productivity, accountability, and job satisfaction. Motivation. Performance management systems are designed to identify employees' strengths, weaknesses, and professional goals. The purpose of identifying employees' strength is to prepare them for additional responsibilities within their current roles or for promotional opportunities. Frederick W. Hertzberg's theory about employee motivation focused not on monetary reward as motivation, but on non-monetary employee recognition. Productivity. Assessing employee productivity is a critical performance goal. Performance management system consists of appraisal and evaluation used to determine productivity levels and ways to improve productivity. Barriers or obstacles that prevent high productivity are usually discovered through evaluating employee performance. They can then be corrected with training and development, which are part of the goal setting stage within most performance appraisal. Accountability. Holding employees accountable for their job responsibility is yet another performance goal. Managers use performance evaluation to determine if employees are actually performing the job tasks they are hired to do. Job satisfaction. Many employees want to create a work environment that fosters collaboration and synergy, thus improving the chances of employee satisfaction and retention. Therefore, performance evaluation that assesses the level of job satisfaction can actually determine employee success in other work areas. Smart goal setting. Managers and employees should engage in goal setting conversation using SMART techniques to identify performance goals. Such techniques inquire goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time sensitive. Expatriate performance management. The focus on expatriate performance management results from increasing levels of internationalization and a greater number of companies operating globally and thus sending employees to work in a foreign country for an extended period of time. The challenges of expatriate performance management. Divergent practices are attributed to the culture of the nation in which head office is situated. Performance management practices frequently represent a mix of home and local system and concepts which in turn are affected by various host contextual factors such as country culture, economic, political and legal systems and organization, specific factors such as strategy, structure and culture and country of origin. There is also general agreement that performance management becomes more complicated with a move from domestic to an international context. The situation relating to expatriates may be further complicated by the fact that both home and host country managers may be involved in the goal setting process while the primary responsible manager is located not just locally but at a distance in a home or even a third country unit in the host country. Developments in expatriate performance management. Studies to date suggest that standardized performance management processes are typically adopted in expatriate performance management, relying on, for example, standardized forms. Levels of formality are greater in the usually larger organization dealing with expatriate performance management, more formal practices being required in matrix organization with dual reporting relationship. Summary. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. Performance management systems are designed to identify employees' strengths, weaknesses, and professional goals. Performance appraisals provide the basic for making selection and promotion decisions, determining salary increases, and they are a vehicle for feedback between supervisors and employees. Managing performance in a global context depends on adequate commitments to trust, communication, open minds, and understanding of culture differences above and beyond what would otherwise be required in one location or country. The ranking system requires a rater to rank his subordinates and overall performance. This consists in simply putting a man in a rank order. Communication always requires that employees have the opportunity and ability to provide feedback to their bosses in order to make sure that the communication is understood.